we're going to dive into a topic that I have actively avoided for years when it comes to reading. Hi everyone, my name is Kayla and welcome back to Kay's Hidden Shelf, where we talk about books. Today we're going to be delving into a topic that I have actively avoided for years, mainly because the numbers, whether known or unknown, scared me. I'm talking about incomplete or unfinished series. These are series that I started and have not finished. And this is a number that has always scared me because I am notorious for starting series and not continuing them, which is something I have actively been working on over the last year or so. With that in mind, I've also been trying to accomplish the Read Your Shelf challenge just to reduce the amount of unread physical copies on my shelves, mainly. And part of organizing all of that meant going through all of the books that are up there, all of the books that I have unread on my shelves, and it meant taking a look at the series that were unfinished as a result. So with all of those numbers finally organized after way too many hours, I have put together a list that is the priority series I am focusing on completing, and some that I'd like to give a second chance to. The ones that we're talking about today are the series that have all of the books out. There's no reason that I should have not continued on with them. So these are the ones that I am focusing on today's list. So that brings us to 14 series I actively am planning to read and finish, and 3 that I want to give a second chance to. Without wasting any time, let's just go ahead and dive in with the first one, and that is Dune by Frank Herbert. I read this a couple years ago. I was so intimidated originally by this chunker, and I won't lie, the idea of potentially needing to reread this in order to continue the series does still intimidate me. However, I remember also listening to the audiobook and absolutely adoring the performances in there. It was a full cast, brilliant performance, and I think a lot of the audiobook performance helped me get through this chunker at the time because it was a hectic section of my life as well. Overall, I remember really enjoying it. I remember wanting to continue it, and I still have that feeling of I got to get back to that series. So this is one that I plan to continue. I also have book 2, which just the size of this alone gives me a bit more hope for being able to complete this series, because the absolute size difference of these 2 books is insane to me. I don't know why. I'm sure someone in the comments might tell me, but yeah, it's baffling, but hopeful at the same time. After that, it is the Gale Song series by Shauna Lawless. I have read books 1 and 2, as well as the 2 novellas, but I need to read book 3, The Land of the Living and the Dead. And after that, there are 2 more books coming out. I believe book 4, which is the start of the second arc to this trilogy, as well as a novella. So I am really wanting to read book 3 quite soon to be able to keep up with the new releases, because they're my most anticipated releases this year, and I am so excited to continue this series. This is one of those series for me that is rare in the sense of I just want to get lost in this series, read it back to back. I'm loving the world and the characters, and I miss the world once I'm done reading a book. So I am just loving the experience. I don't want it to end. Shauna, please keep writing, because I am just adoring this series. And this could be a series, I think, for me that would end up as a reread if and when it ever does end. Next is a superhero space opera series that I have loved reading, and I'm a little bit behind. And this starts with Wistful Ascending, and this is by J.C.M. Byrne. It's the Hybrid Helix series. I believe he said he's planning 20-some books for this series, and I am currently, I think, 2 books behind at the moment, and I think there's another one coming out soon, so I have a few books to catch up on in this one, but this is a series I can absolutely see myself reading for quite some time, enjoying. I've done videos on it. I've talked about it before, and I will try and link that in the cards for all of you if you're interested. But it is such a great read for anyone who loves characters, the space opera tropes done differently, and then superheroes included in that. Great references. Yeah, so definitely this is one I will be keeping up with. After that, we have Andrew D. Meredith's The Collation Saga. This is one that I started book one and I adored it. I really enjoyed the experience. It was quite different than what I was expecting in terms of fantasy. It's a bit of that old school fantasy with a really strong focus on religion, world building, characters. It's just the depth and scope of it is incredible, and I really enjoyed it. And I do need to continue on with the rest of the series that is available at the moment. So this is another one that I need to get to sooner than later. Also, for the Collation Saga with Deathless Beast, it was one of those books for me that I read, I enjoyed, I processed everything, and then articulating why it was so good has been a struggle for me. So I'm hoping by book two, things will click better and allow me to articulate that more. But I would say if you love wide scope views, really in-depth looks on world, and just really intriguing character arcs and all of those aspects in terms of fantasy, this is definitely a series you should check out. After that, we have Legends and Legacies by Cal Black. This is a Western fantasy. I've read No Land for Heroes, and I still have No Port in a Storm to read. I really enjoyed book one. It's a lot of that adventure and fantasy, found family vibes that I absolutely love. We have a great female main character in here, and there's just so much action, the fantasy elements of the dragons. And this was at a point where I wasn't sure if I'd even like the genre blending of Western with fantasy, specifically gaslamp fantasy. But Cal did it in such a way that made it feel like a fantasy primarily. Nothing felt over-explained. The Western aspects just felt naturally blended in with the fantasy. So how did I explain that? The Western aspects blended in very seamlessly with the fantasy ones. And so this is a series that I've been really wanting to come back to, especially in a moment where I'm needing something a bit different from my heavy chunkers and something that I know will deliver that cozy, adventurous, and bit of a thrilling read at the same time. Cal Black is also not afraid to delve into more emotional aspects of storytelling, which I also appreciate, and why I think it'll be perfect for a palate cleanser, for delving into something a little different compared to the complex, big, beefy series. Next up is the Songs of Chaos series by Michael R. Miller. This is a Dragon Rider fantasy with a bit of progression fantasy mixed in. The world was really interesting to me. I've read book one, and I am actually halfway through book two at the moment, so I am actively working towards reading and catching up with this series, especially with the next book in the series coming out, I believe, this year. So yeah, this is one I'm hoping to get caught up on sooner than later. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. After that, we have the Sun Eater series by Christopher Ruocchio. I more recently started this last month, actually, and I'm trying to do one book a month as best as I can, or at least follow along with the buddy read that I'm doing this with over at Tori Talks channel in her Discord. I started Howling Dark last night. I'm only one chapter in, but I've started. So this is one I'm trying to keep up a good, steady pace with, especially with how complex this story seems to be. So I enjoyed book one. If you want my full thoughts on it, I do have a video for that. But basically, it hooked me enough that I wanted to keep reading with book two quite closely after finishing book one. After that, we have Tales of the Plains by David Regg. This is a fantasy western. It's a trilogy with books one and two currently out. I have read book one, and I do need to read book two. I've been holding off on book two mainly because I do want the paperback, and there's the whole delayed release aspect when it comes to hardcover to paperback. I would just prefer to immersion read this one, and I am willing to wait to get the proper matching paperback to do so. I love audiobooks and immersion reading them with the physical copy in some form, so this is one that I really enjoyed. I loved the themes and the developments, and the characters were just fantastic. So yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing this one and hopefully being able to complete it because it's a trilogy, And it's a little different than some of the other series on this list that are a lot longer than that. Editing Kayla here. I realized I forgot to include a series because it's a series I started quite recently, actually, and that is the Memoirs of Lady Trent by Marie Brennan. I've read books 1 and 2 already. I already have book 3 ready to listen to from the library. I have been loving this series. It's been a comfort read for me. There's just so much to love about it. And in terms of dragons, for example, there's a lot of burnout that I've had in terms of reading dragons in fantasy and just wanting a refreshing take. Really, I have been loving this. I know it's a series where we follow a scholar studying dragons, but that perspective rather than a dragon person bond or the typical tropes that we see in fantasy, I love the concept of the dragons being just wild beasts that demand study and science from this woman and their society. So I love that perspective. And Lady Trent herself is a force to be reckoned with in her world. So I have been really enjoying it. I'm looking forward to continuing it and highly recommend it if you're looking for a historical fantasy that just blends the two beautifully and follows a scholar. I also forgot to mention the Triumphary Revelation series by L.L. Stevens, and I have no excuses for this. It literally sits over my shoulder in the back of every video, looks me dead in the eye every time I come to check out my shelves and see what's going to be next to read. I have no excuses, but this is a series that I love the beginning of. Sordanian in particular, the first book in the series starts off with a devastating scene. It delves into an incredible character study, not just on the main character, but side characters as well. We have a complicated world with 2 kingdoms that are just have a history of problems and trying to move forward from those conflicts between the kingdoms, a magic system that is in depth and linked with the bloodlines of families. So there is a lot of complexity to this story, a lot of emotional moments, a lot of moments that made me mad for the character, happy for the character, and just everything in between. I don't think there's a moment in Sordanian that I did not enjoy. So I have thought about it since. It still pops up in the back of my brain that I need to continue, and I think back to the moments in Sordanian often. But because of the complexity of the story and the attention that I feel it deserves in terms of reading it, I just have not been able to dedicate that time. So I know with Sordanian, it actually took me a couple months to read through, and I am wanting to really devote that time and take my time as I continue the series. So this is going to be a series that I'm probably going to be reading for a while. The last book is coming out soon as well, which is another kick in the pants for me to get going. But in terms of enjoyability and excitement, this is high on that list. And I think that's all of the ones that I missed. So with that being the case, let's move on to the rest of the video. Next on this list is the Books of Babel by Josiah Bancroft. I read Senlin Ascends. I enjoyed it for the most part. I think there were some things that didn't quite work for me. Others that it kept me interested enough that I wanted to continue for the overarching plot and the characters. And so I do have Arm of the Sphinx next to read. And yes, I am missing book 3 in a physical copy. I found The Fall of Babel on sale, so I couldn't pass that up. But yes, this is a series that I found fascinating for the character's circumstance where he takes his wife on their honeymoon to this place that he has basically idolized his entire career and gets there only to lose her. And he spends the entire book and I presume the series trying to find her. So it's just shenanigans, adventures, unknowns, and interesting situations. Like I said, not everything has worked for me, at least in Senlin Ascends, but it's enjoyable enough to put on the audiobook and just get lost in the physical copy or just in the voice performance while doing chores. It's going to be one of those series, I think, for me. And that might change. I've heard great things from this series. I've heard a lot of people love it. So I am curious too if it'll just get better from book 1 for me. I've also heard a lot of people loving this series, so that may change for me as I continue reading the series. For me, a lot of hype and love 4 series comes from the overall series, not just book 1. So I'm curious what'll happen. Next is the Dance of a Light series by Gregory Contaxis. This one's pretty heavy, so I'm going to put this one down. But from what I remember of this being pitched as was Greek mythology meets Game of Thrones. It does delve quite deeply in with Greek mythology and stories or influences that I didn't even realize or know about when I started reading. I've read book 1 and have also read the novella, and both had different, forms of storytelling is the best way to look at it. While the entire thing is very character focused, it does have a lot of look into the character's circumstances. Book 1 to me felt more plot driven, whereas the novella felt more character oriented and had a bit more emotional depth, which worked better for me. But I still really enjoyed everything that was set up in book 1 enough to want to continue and to be able to find out what happens with everything, because this also has one of the most intriguing villains I have ever read. And so I do need to continue with book 2 and 3 in the series, which I believe book 3 recently released as well. So that is one I would like to catch up on quite soon. This next one is a trilogy, and I'm not going to lie, I'm a bit apprehensive or at least hesitant to complete this one. I've read books 1 and 2 and had very different experiences between books 1 and 2. And with book 3, I'm now left wondering if I even want to attempt it. But I am putting it on here because book 1 intrigued me enough to want to finish this series, or at least see how book 3 lands for me. And this one is the Founders trilogy by Robert Jackson Bennett. I can never remember the order of the 3 names for this author, but I did really enjoy Foundryside. It had a really interesting magic system. The characters I was cheering for, you had a bit of found family, or at least motley crew that's involved in it. And book 2 is where that all kind of changed for me. We still get those characters. It's still intriguing. We get plot developments, but it basically followed the same formula as book 1, which was problem, heist, problem, heist, problem, heist, and reveal. And so now with book 3, I'm just a little hesitant. Again, I miss the world. I actually really enjoyed the world, but I'm so worried that I'm going to be falling into another systematic, formulaic book in a trilogy, and the only way for me to know is to try and find out. So that is my plan. I will update on what happens if I end up completing the trilogy or end up DNFing it. I don't know. After that, we have the Riverfall Chronicles by Jacqueline Hagan. These are beefy books, so they're going to stay on the table. But basically, this is a gas lamp fantasy with found family, mystery, intrigue, adventure, high stakes. This is the type of series that has just kept me turning the pages well past my bedtime, with an incredible audiobook performance as well. Now, I don't believe all of these books have the audiobooks available, as I do think the narrator decided to take a step back due to personal reasons, but I need to catch up with book 4, The Sundering Hours. It's been sitting on my shelf taunting me, and I need to pick this up soon and continue with these series. So yes, this is a series that is going to be, I think, one of the priority ones, absolutely. The next series is way too hefty for me to hold up, so you're going to get images on the screen, but that is the Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson. I've read books 1 and 2. I've enjoyed them. I don't think they're absolutely perfect. I do think that at least book 2 was starting to get a bit formulaic or repetitive for me, although I am quite intrigued as to the world and the circumstances that are going to evolve. Knowing Brandon Sanderson's writing, he's going to have some reveals coming up that he's been foreshadowing. I'm a reader who loves foreshadowing with payoff, and so I'm really curious what's going to happen next. But yeah, I do need to continue with books 3 and on. And yes, I have been avoiding all talks, any comments people had about Wind and Truth. And yeah, I'm just blinders on and I will read and form my own opinion once I get caught up. The last series in this section is The Witcher by Andrzej Sapkowski. This is a series that I've known about for so long. I've played the game, Witcher 3, I think it was. I enjoyed the first season of the TV show. And the books are something that I started mainly too because out of my own curiosity and seeing the original works, but also based on recommendations that I had received. So it's one that I want to continue. I did read, I think it was Blood of the Elves. Yes, Blood of the Elves. That was the one that was gifted to me by a family member, actually. So I had mixed feelings overall, I think, for Blood of the Elves. There was aspects that I liked, others that felt a bit odd. And I am curious. I do want to continue. I want to see where it goes, what happens. But overall, my initial experience with Blood of the Elves, I would just say is mixed. Otherwise, I mean, I just want to see what happens. What original content inspired the game that I played and enjoyed, the show that resulted out of it. So that is part of what's fascinating for me as well. And being able to read a book or a series that is beloved by someone I care about, a family member that I love. So yeah, that is one I will be continuing to. This final section of the video, I am classifying as second chances because these are 3 series that I started and just did not finish for various reasons. So I do want to continue them or give them a second chance. And we'll dive into the reasons. The first one is Malazan by Steven Erikson. I actually got 4 books in as part of a buddy read. I was really enjoying the experience, the complexity of it, the foreshadowing, the world, the characters. It was a lot to follow, but I was enjoying the experience. And the reason I ended up putting it on pause for indefinitely because I didn't know what was going to happen was due to losing my grandmother. She had passed away. We were quite close. And I ended up taking her passing a bit harder than I was anticipating. And so reading a series like Malazan did not help with the grieving process. There's a lot of death, there's a lot of war, there's a lot of dark themes that are covered in Malazan, and I just really was at a point in my life where I needed something lighter, a little bit more like a hug, not murder, mayhem, and no. So I ended up putting it on pause until I was feeling ready to jump back into it. And I do plan to potentially just restart it so that I can get a better idea of what I have already read, because it's a very complex and in-depth series. And I think if I just dive in right now, pick up where I left off, I would likely be missing a lot of pieces or have forgotten a lot of pieces. So this is one I might end up rereading and attempting to get all the way through on my second chance. After that is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. I actually read books 1 and 2, but didn't finish with book 3. It was this for me. Book 1 was okay for me. It had a lot of tropes and themes that just were not up my alley. It's not to say that it was bad or poorly written. It just wasn't for me. Book 2, I wanted to try and see if it got better for me, if it worked better. And it did, ultimately. It still didn't 100% sell me because I didn't end up finishing with book 3, but it is a series that I think looking back on book 2, I'd like to retry. I'm a different reader from the first time I tried reading it. And I think I'd like to give this one a second chance and see if I have the same experience or a different one, if I will end up being able to finish at least the main trilogy. We'll see. The last one for today's video is The Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. That's right. I did start this series way back, and I read The Jade City, I believe, the first book in the trilogy, and I just never continued. There were elements that I liked and elements that just didn't quite land enough for me to want to continue. That's not to say it's not an amazing series. It's just the place I was at with my reading. I wasn't so much looking for more of a realistic world setting. I wanted to escape. I didn't want so much the mafia type of lifestyle or the family business type of lifestyle. And so I think it just was a timing thing more than anything. So I would really like to retry this trilogy and see how it goes. And yeah, that's basically it. Those are my priority series that I'd either like to catch up on or complete. I'd love to know though, what is your top series you want to complete by the end of 2025? Leave your comments below. I would love to hear from you. Is there a series on here that you think I will love more than the others? I'd also love to hear your thoughts on that. As always, thank you so much for watching and take care of yourselves.